Right now they're running about 80 miles an hour in big season. Whoa, keep her down, Willie.
My name is Willy Falcon. I was the undisputed king in the cocaine industry from the mid-70s through the 80s and into the 90s. If you snort cocaine back in those days, there was 85% chance it was my cocaine.
Who do you consider as your top competition right now?
My sister Chip.
I helped build Miami skyline into what it is today. $20 billion got me 27 years in federal prison.
One of the so-called cocaine cowboys has been deported, Willy Falcon.
Behind the myth of Scarface lies a very real story. That of Willy Falcon, the real Tony Montana.
Augusto Guillermo, known as Willy Falcon, was born in Alcazar, Cuba in 1955. His story begins like that of many exiles, torn from his homeland and thrown into a new city where the language, culture, and above all, social status are unforgiving. In Miami, the Cuban community is rebuilding itself, but social advancement is not a given. The doors remain closed. For Willy, dropping out of school is not an isolated act. It is the consequence of excellent calculation. Stay in a school system that offers him no prospects, or take a riskier but immediate opportunity to change his status. This logic is shared by dozens of young people at the time. The speed of earning money becomes a promise. The street becomes a springboard. The stories surrounding Willy describe him as an intelligent kid, but in a hurry. He doesn't reject effort, he rejects waiting. It is in this stero that he meets Salvador Salmagluda. The two cross paths at Miami Senior High. They shared desks, academic disappointments, and very quickly the same appetite for easy money. He started by selling small quantities, first cannabis, then over the years moved on to cocaine. This transition was not only material, it reflected a change in mindset. Where many live, Evo is a machine for rising above the status of migrant. Power, respect, and protection. Between them, a complicity is forged based on street loyalty and complementary roles. One has the looks, the other the numbers. One attracts attention, the other manages the accounts. Together, they become more dangerous than the sum of their parts. Miami, 1980s. The city is no longer just a showcase of sun and sand. It is a powder keg. And in this chaos, two Cubans from Yale, Willy Falcon and Sal Magluda Desideto, write their own legend. Their playground is the sea, their weapon is speed. Their ambition is nothing less than to dominate the cocaine business. From the beginning, they understand one thing. Cocaine is not just powder. It's power. And to transport this powder, you have to go faster than the law, faster than the Coast Guard, faster than everyone else. So they invest in powerful boats capable of cutting through the waves in the middle of the night. They pamper these boats, customize them, and make them undetectable. In Miami, everyone sees Falcon and Magluda as mere boat racing enthusiasts. But in reality, every race is a cover. Every trophy is a provocation. A striking example. In 1986, Willy Falcon won the Offshore Challenge, a prestigious race off the coast of Kiss. In front of the crowd and the cameras, he raised his trophy like a champion. But behind the smiles, it was a message to the Colombians. Look, we're not just smugglers, we're the kings of the Zia. The boats that race during the day are the same ones that dump tons of cocaine on the coast of Florida. Little by little, the duo builds a network of terrifying efficiency. Hidden ranks in the Everglades toss store the merchandise, shell companies to launder millions. Luxurious apartments in Coral Gables to impress some and intimidate others. And always that mixture of discretion and arrogance, 1 foot in the shadows, 1 foot in the light. In Miami, everyone talks about them, in clubs, in boat racing paddocks, in working-class neighborhoods. They are seen in Ferraris, surrounded by models handing out wads of bills as if they were paper, and yet no one can touch them. Even when they are arrested, there is always a loophole. A missing file, a witness who recants, Evidence that vanishes into thin air. Tell the story. During a maritime transport, one of their boats is spotted. Panic, the crew has only one solution. Throw kilograms of cocaine overboard in the middle of the dark night. Imagine the scene, the packages floating like white ghosts on the surface of the ocean while the speedboat disappears into the horizon. That's the Falcon Magluta brand, always getting away with it. Always faster, and the figures are dizzying. 75 tons of cocaine imported between 1978 and 1991, billions of dollars laundered. The federal government had never seen an organization so vast, so disciplined, and at the same time sustentatious. It was more than a cartel. It was a showcase, a brand, a lifestyle. But behind the glitz, fear was already lurking. Witnesses who dared to speak out were threatened. Some disappear, others are found dead. The duo understands that wealth attracts the spotlight and that the spotlight attracts the police. And in this dance with danger, Falcon and Magluta do not yet know that they are writing the beginning of their downfall. Behind the yachts, trophies, and villas, there was a brutal truth. The cocaine business was no game. It was a world where every victory could be followed by betrayal, where every smile could hide a trap, where the slightest weakness could cost you your life. Willy Falcon knew this better than anyone because he too paid the price with his own flesh and blood and his family. One day, at the height of Heist Empire, Falcon received the phone call that every drug lord dreads. His own mother, had been kidnapped. Kidnapped by rivals, men who wanted money or revenge. Imagine the scene. An innocent woman torn from her daily life, used as bargaining chip in a world where greenbacks are worth more than human life. For Willy, it was an unacceptable affront. But it was also a dilemma. In this business, responding to an attack can trigger an endless war. So he pays. According to several accounts, the ransom reaches $500,000, an astronomical sum at the time. The money changes hands, his mother is released, but the scar remains. It is proof that even he, with his boats and his millions, is never really safe. This episode reinforced his image of toughness. Many say that after that, Falcon became even more distrustful, even more paranoid. He understood that violence spares no one, not even families. Miami in the 1980s and 1990s was a jungle. Falcon and Magluta were not alone. There were other Cubans, other organizations, other cartels. Colombians from Medellin, factions from Cali, independents who dreamed of their share of the pie. Each shipment was an opportunity but also a risk because one mistake was enough for rivals to intercept the goods, steal the millions, or make an entire crew disappear. It is said that several of their associates ended up murdered. Their bodies were found in the Everglades, abandoned as warnings. Willy himself escaped several assassination attempts. Once, as he was leaving a club, a shooting broke out. Bullets whizzed by, windows shattered, but he emerged unharmed. In Miami, people began to say that Falcon had outrageous luck, that death hovered around him but never touched him. In 1991, the party came to an end. Falcon, Magluta, and Gustavo Falcon were charged with drug trafficking, money laundering, and criminal organization. For the government, it was a victory. Finally, the cocaine cowboys would be held accountable. All of Miami held its breath. The newspapers ran headlines every day, and in the courtroom corridors, people wondered whether this time justice would bring them down. But from the outset, Theatrial took on the air of a film noir. Key witnesses recanted, recordings mysteriously disappeared, lawyers were paid fortunes to dissect every detail, and above all, thievery. The foreman, Miguel Moya, knew Magluta even before the trial. And very quickly, the unthinkable was discovered. Several jurors had been bribed, corrupted, envelopes of cash to vote not guilty. It was no longer Atrial, it was a masquerade. In 1996, the verdict was handed down.
Not guilty.
Miami was in shock. How was it possible that two of the biggest drug traffickers in history were walking free? In the streets, some cheered them like heroes. Others cried scandal. But Falcon and Magluta were savoring the moment. For them, it was a total victory, beating the US government at its own game. But this arrogance would not last. Because the truth always comes out in the end. The feds discovered the corruption and reopened the cases. This time there would be no miracle. Magluta was sentenced to nearly 200 years in prison. Willy negotiated a deal. 20 years behind bars, the king of the waves finds himself locked up, deprived of the ocean, deprived of speed. For Willy, prison is already a dizzying fall. But for his brother Gustavo, the story takes a different turn. After the indictment, he literally disappears. For years, no one knows where he is. In reality, Gustavo was living a double life. New names, new identities, a quiet suburban life in Kissimmee, Florida. But in 2017, after 26 years on the run, the mask came off. The marshals arrested him in the middle of the afternoon.
One of the original cocaine cowboys has now been arrested in Central Florida. Gustavo Falcon was on the run for 25 years.
Willy was released in 2017 after 20 years in prison. But his freedom was short-lived because he was not a U.S. citizen, and in 2018 he was deported not to Cuba but to the Dominican Republic, a forced exile far from the scene of his triumphs. This is what became of the story of Willy Falcon, a man who had it all: money, speed, women, boats, fear, and respect. A man who shook the United States with his shipments of white powder. A man who, for a time, believed he was untouchable. But at the end of the road, there is no glory. There is prison, there is exile. The real Tony Montana of Miami didn't end up in a bloody shootout. He ended up in the shadows, forgotten, far from the spotlight. His empire, his billions, his yachts, dust. And that's the moral of the story. In this business, you can reign like a king, but the end is always the same, the fall. And Falcon and Magluta are living proof of that fall. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lunchbox on Willy Falcon. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and tell me in the comments which character you'd like to see in the next video.